Um, I guess I just go? Okay. Hi, everybody. We had somebody else assigned in the other room, so I'm not quite, but that's all good. Hi, thanks for coming. My name is Kurt. I'm going to be presenting today on the global ambassadors. And really, I'll front load this. I'm really looking for the discussion afterwards, because this whole idea of how non-formal education works with schools, especially in Aotearoa, I'll introduce myself in a bit, but coming into this system is a little bit different than what I'm used to in the rest of the world. So it's a different animal. So I'd really like any feedback from the room possible. Really quickly, I'd like to give a shout out to Heidi Kalarai. She helps me run the Global Ambassador. She's on Tauranga City Council, Diversity Inclusion Lead, and ever since it began, we've been working together on that, but I'll explain that in a bit. Very quickly before we begin, I'll probably be using some vocabulary of different languages, including Maori. Anytime I use language from something like that, it is because I think it's the right word to use to the best of my ability. So bear with me with pronunciation as well. But please know that it's coming from a place of respect and not just kind of dropping words here and there. Discussion is welcome, I already covered that, and there'll be some difficult topics such as racism, things like that, which actually come up in programs like this. So again, we're here to lift each other up, not bring each other down. Anything I say is coming from that place, so I invite that from the room as well. Everybody good with that? Cool. And this pretty much an overview, but I'm gonna try and stick to the abstract as much as possible. A couple little tweaks here and there. And this is me. My presentation this morning was about aquatics and education. This is kind of where I'm at home. But born and raised Canadian, parents are of Ascension from the Caribbean. I am also British, so I cover a number of things, and I've traveled over the past 30 years or so and ended up in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Son, brother, husband, stepfather. My emphasis is aquatics, education, social justice, but I've been kind of running programs like this for a while, so I'll give you a little bit of background. I'm also a PhD candidate here at Waikato. But I'll give you a little bit of the early inspiration for this type of thinking and this type of program. This was probably 1999, 2000. I was working in the Caribbean. I was a Marine Parks manager, doing a lot of community work, but also working with scientists and working with research. School ship came down. They do those semesters coming down from Florida, and they asked, hey, can we help out? Can we do something? So I said, yeah, can you get your 16 and 18-year-olds to develop me a new protocol for research which will allow me to use novice divers safely? And the teachers looked at me and went, no, that's too much. They can't. You got to give them more context. They can't handle it. They can't. I said, let them try. We actually did it. The kids sat down with the problem, and that circle down there, that's what they came up with. There was one of those beacons at the site. So what they said was, let's just tie off on the beacon. We'll go out and come back on the transects, which means that it's safer. It's coming from a central point, but you're still collecting the information. And all the teachers on the boat kind of looked at each other and went, that might actually work. They came up with it themselves, giving them the agency and giving, hey, we believe in you. Yes, they could have failed, but the success was all the more sweeter for it. That kind of idea has carried through with me ever since that point, and even before that point, in pretty much everything I've done. I have done TESOL work over in Korea, but it was at a facility called English Village, specialized in experiential education. So we designed specific curriculum to immerse students inside of an English environment. And I was the lead designer on the Working Holiday program, which was 18 to probably 40 was the oldest age we had through, getting global experience working with the English teachers, but also having a curriculum that kind of prepared them what it would be like out there, outside of Korea. And some of the thinking that went into that bounced on these two things. So I don't know if anybody's familiar with design thinking for educators. That's way back when. It looks different now. IDEO has changed it. But this was the original project that they did I still use this original project. I haven't migrated to the new systems because it very much was a very careful consensus format where you kept checking in with the group and is everybody okay for the next step? Is everybody okay for the next step? It really, really works well. Anybody familiar with Sugata Mitra? Dr. Sugata Mitra from India? If you get a chance to watch his YouTube, please do. It's got 700 and something thousand hits, but he developed something called a self-organized learning environment. He developed it, I won't go into detail, but basically he put a computer into a wall and cemented it in and just left it for the kids in the village to go play with this and see what you come up with. And the kids were going, oh yeah, we've learned how to use Windows, and they've never seen a computer before. Creating an environment which boosts the curiosity of the kids in a way which allows self-organized learning. I pulled a lot of inspiration from that as well. Fast forward to when I came to Aotearoa. This was the first STEM festival in Tauranga. I was part of the organizing committee, and I was in charge of the STEM champions. So we were actually bringing people who were interested in science together to be inspirational for the next generation, and developed a program around that. Again, this whole idea of how do you bring people together in an experiential way? They're better for it, but they're having output. And then the global ambassadors. The global ambassadors was, I would say it's a little bit of a fluke. It's like perfect storm, how it came together. But this was the first, what we call global ambassadors prime. This was the first group. They actually developed those logos themselves. And these are the logos that are now part of the project. They own those, as far as I'm concerned anyway. And when I say it's a little bit of a perfect storm, it was actually a partnership that came together in a way that was, I think, really unique. So Tauranga City Council, and that would be led by Haiti, who I already introduced. Myself as Enigmatic Global, independent, I'm just me. I'm not, no organization, just me. And Education Tauranga was working with Education New Zealand on their global citizenship program, their student ambassadors program. And they wanted to launch that in Tauranga. So we got together and went, hey, wait a second, I have a format that might work. And I scribbled that thing and then came up with this format to begin with. The format of 16 to 18 years old, originally I was going, this is going to take some child protection and stuff that I wasn't actually thinking for tertiary, but we did it because that was actually seen as a group that was in need. Diversity inclusion, one of the other interesting points is we brought domestic into it, so it wasn't just for international students. The idea being a room full of international students, what they really want is connection. So why wouldn't we bring the domestic students in to actually have that sharing? And it's not directly connected to schools. We actually didn't go to the schools, and that's what I was talking about before. The barriers of each different school has a different set of board of directors, has a different set of things. It's actually really difficult to try and create those relationships with schools. We went to community, welcoming communities through Tauranga City Council. Already had a network through the community, so we actually focused there first. And we did stuff. We did a lot of stuff. So over the 2 years, we did an incredible amount of stuff. COVID hit right when we started. A lot of programs shut down, but we had already pre-formatted to be an online, so remote, a blended, remote and in person. So when COVID hit, we just switched to remote. We were using GatherTown, a unique platform where they have their own office with their own avatars. And we had Slack at the time as well for their planning and stuff like that. We actually just kept running straight through the lockdown. They did going to events, showing up for community meetings like the Migrant Settlement Network, the Multi-Ethnic Forum. That's where two of the ambassadors are making the heart right there. Quite often at all of these events and things, they were the only young people in the room. And they're not only representing their diversity, but also representing youth in those rooms. And wasn't just general community meetings. The one down at the bottom there where they're having dinner, that was through Priority 1, and it was international delegations from something like 50 countries. And the global ambassadors were the local representatives for us as well. So they're sitting at the table with all these representatives. All that stuff. And then you see the picture at the bottom here, that's more recent. You would have heard about the mayoral candidates, first time Tauranga's voting in a while. Multicultural Tauranga had a mayoral candidate interview. The global ambassadors were charged with giving them the hard questions. And they took the show. I didn't do anything, I just sat there. My job was just to make sure that they were protected and safe. So that gives you an idea of what we were doing over the entire time. And I'm not tracking time, but that's okay. You got it?
3:28.
Woo! This is so we had little touches of engagements that we do, but then there were some more robust projects. We worked with Human Rights Commission, Race Relations Group on a project called Whakamana Hapori, and that was an extended project which we had a delegation of ambassadors in. This one, really proud of. Those young people in the bottom left there, that was a team that was part of this project with the Tauranga Heritage Collection. And it's really unique. So half of those are global ambassadors because they really wanted diversity, and we had it. So we, hey, let's do it. And I actually helped facilitate the project alongside the Heritage Collection team. And the group was charged with, number one, choosing something from the collection that meant something to them, but also donating something to the collection that meant something to them. So every single one of those young people have an artifact which is now part of the collection forever. And just as an example, I've put in Blessing Pasi. She is a star, Pacific Island descent, and she found one of the mats, and I'm not going to pronounce it correctly, I think it's itoga, made of very fine fibers, takes ages to make, and very, very cherished. And she was over the moon that she got to be close to these things and how much they meant, and she has a family one as well, and she really connected. And then as her output, what she did was she actually, and again, she went to them directly because of the facilitation and said, can I do a display at my school? And the Heritage Collection came in, brought the artifacts, and actually helped her do it. All because she had this opportunity. And now that is in the book called Collecting Glimpses, or Collecting Connections, that is there. So they're making impact. And you're not gonna be able to read that. This is the impact that they're making. This is how we track it. So we track every single interaction that they do, and then we actually track the sustainable development goals that they're hitting with each one of those interactions. So to summarize it, over 2 years, they did 51 projects in total that they were involved with, local, regional, national, and international levels, various forms from governmental to non-governmental to corporate, 170 sustainable development goals, and we can really see where their emphasis was because we work on consensus. They choose what they're going to do, and they choose whether to engage or not. And that's a format that they decided on. So you see my nice plan in the beginning. I was going to teacher it. Yeah, no. They wanted to do it a different way, but it fit within the format and it fit within the foundation. So that's what the programs become. It's become creating a foundation underneath them for them to be able to create impact. And the most important thing I think that we get a lot is, well, what was the impact on them? We actually measure the impact on them by measuring how much they impact. Because very seldom do you have programs like this which are outward focused, looking at how much they have supported their community, how much they have impacted things, how much difference they have made. So we know that they're getting benefit, but really the benefit's coming from, if they've made that kind of impact, obviously they'll learn something. So we took a year to kind of think about it and ruminated about it a bit. We did an external review, and that's where the benefit to them came in because the external reviewers interviewed them separately, looked at where we were doing well, looked at things that we can improve, but overall, it was very clear that there's a niche for this and there's a need for this. Vital Updates is a project in Tauranga which actually really drills down into a local survey format, especially with young people. The Global Ambassadors actually helped reach young people to be part of this. And also it's feeding back now on what are the needs of young people in Tauranga, and we're looking at that. And then we're looking at research as well, and there's not a lot of, and as you go down to the other category, the research becomes less and less in Aotearoa. So there's research coming out now, and this one is specifically of African heritage, looking at how people identify and how people are feeling in Aotearoa and what their needs are. As far as theories go, I just found out that there's this book from Sugata Mitra, so I'm looking forward to reading it. But I've looked at a lot of his work before. I expect I'll have an idea what's in there. But I think that's important, affirming methodologies and affirming pedagogies that is specifically Caribbean from Dr. Camille Naked up in AUT, et al. But a lot of that is about affirming culture and affirming your perspective in something, which is very much what we do. And critical pedagogy, we hit up on this all the time because racism is actually a really important thing to them and they raise it a lot. The invisible wall. And this is where that school crossover, it was a very soft way of doing it, but it was very significant. The Global Ambassadors from Tauranga Boys College thought that they wanted to create a culture club because they saw other students in Global Ambassadors had a culture club. Te Puke High School, shout out to them, excellent program that they have, really strong. So they're going, we want one too. They actually collaborated. They got the teachers from Te Puke to actually go on a Skype call with them or a Zoom call with them, have a chat, how can we do it? And then they were working with their school separately to create this. And this is Chad, one of the Global Ambassadors, speaking at an assembly, talking about the invisible wall, talking about the isolation that some of them feel and how they have to live two lives and sharing that. But there was so much front-loading for this coming from the Global Ambassadors themselves, them talking about among themselves and the connections that they made. And this is where I think the stuff with school comes in because schools can't do everything. We keep piling things on schools again and again and again. How do we actually have community programs intersecting to create these spaces where we can complement? And this is the last thing I'll throw in. Probably have a little bit of time, but I've been kind of ruminating on this for a while and really interesting that this came up in the plenary session this morning. And again, I'm being careful here. I'm not comparing this to Te Tiriti. I'm not saying that I'm drawing from that directly, but I'm inspired by it. Because when I think about the program that we're doing, these three words actually encapsulate everything that we're doing. We are creating partnership, not only partners in the group that's actually spearheading the program, but we are partnered with the ambassadors. Right now we have three former ambassadors who are now ambassador leads, and they sit on our steering group as equals. And they are helping to move things forward from their perspective. Participation, the whole idea of putting them out there in a way where they can actually directly interact, where they have agency. And again, as equals, not, oh, well, you're the young voice and now we're going to ignore you. And that's where the protection comes in. Because I didn't realize how much protection was required to put a 16 to 18-year-old in a room full of adults until I actually did it and realized that I need to be on it all the time because they get pushed back. They get pushed into a corner. There are other things that go on where you have to be very careful. And that is our job. So they don't go anywhere alone. And it's somebody who has the nuance of knowing not only from a protection point from an educator, but also from a cultural aspect. And that's really important for the program to keep them safe because then they're confident in the room. They know they have backup. And my goal is not to say anything, but if I have to say anything, I will stand up and push somebody back and give them the room to be able to speak again. And that's how we roll. GA 3.0, that's the next set. We're meeting on Friday this week. They've just been recruited. And we go again. And I have no idea what this is going to look like because it's going to be up to them. But I know we're going to have a strong foundation under them to make it work. And I welcome your questions, comments, and anything you have. Thank you.